guest of honor is a pre-sales leader who began her journey as a data analyst at Kirkland and Ellis. She currently serves as a director of pre-sales at Propeller. She has a strong background at ITIS management, technical sales, data design, and data analytics, holding a master's degree from the Northwestern University. In our upcoming workshop, we shall explore the process of moving to data driven management and which metrics to track for achieving engineering excellence. Adding her sparkling vibes to the DOS today, please join me in welcoming Miss Mitzi Colbert.
So thank you all for joining the talk today. We're going to be focusing on moving to data-driven engineering management. Typically and historically, we've kind of managed our software delivery via gut feels, really experienced leadership, things like that. And those things still matter. But moving to data-driven engineering management is really an objective and eye-opening experience. So let's jump into what it takes to get there. So my name is Mitzi Colbert. I will be your host today. On the agenda, we will be talking about why even consider being data-driven, how to create that data-driven culture in your engineering organization, how to accelerate that journey through partnership, and finally, how to track and action insights when you do partner and get the metrics and data that you need to run the organization. I'd like to thank the DevOps India Summit for having us today. Please check out Propello if you get a chance. I will give you some additional resources. We'd love to be your partner on this journey. All right, with that said, let's get started. All right, so why be data-driven in the first place? A lot of the research around this has been focused on the organization as a whole. So I want to kind of distill this information for you to make it more relevant to the engineering and software delivery or DevOps, right? So being data-driven, right, in your engineering management allows you to have foresight to make intelligent decisions. You're not just kind of taking the temperature or having a gut feel, right? You really have actionable information at hand, right, for strong decision making. And you can anticipate, right, things that happen that could potentially happen. And so it gives you the ability to be agile, right, and to kind of innovate intelligently, right? So we're talking about fact-based innovation. Innovation is always good. However, if you're innovating based on some really relevant data and information, you know that directionally you're going the right way. And you also have an idea of the value to be gained back, right, for your contribution to that innovation. Thirdly, you want to increase your velocity towards engineering excellence, right? We want to continuously improve our delivery, our customer service and experience, our time to market, so things like that. And in order to increase that, you have to have insight into what's happening, what's impacting those areas of your operations. And so it's very beneficial to be data-driven in those areas. Finally, the last two, you want to be a good partner to your employees and to the business as a whole. So you want to provide transparency to the business and leadership around IT. Technically, the business usually sees technical resources as a cost center. So it's really good to make your contribution to the business in the software delivery space and the DevOps space quantifiable and really manifest it as a value creator in the minds of the business and C-level leadership. Finally, being data-driven will give you an objective, fair, transparent performance management dynamic, right? And it will allow you to have continuous team-based improvement. And so this can foster a really strong working relationship between your technical resources, your management team, and your leadership team internally, right? Because everybody can kind of march to the same drum. And so we'll unpack these a little bit further as we move along in the talk. However, being data-driven in general in all areas is very beneficial. However, it's really just taken shape in the software engineering space, which is funny considering we're also data-driven. All right. So The biggest obstacles to creating data-based businesses are not technical, they are cultural. And I think this is one of the biggest obstacles to engineering organizations really becoming truly data driven, right? Because there's a people aspect to this, right? There's a change management aspect to this. It's not all about, input, output, and process. And so I really want to give a nod to these aspects. See that there's an error on the slide here. All right, there we go. So now we can actually see the information, right? So let's talk about creating this data driven culture. So the first thing that we want to talk about, which is not showing on the slide, and I will correct this before the assets go out, is data driven culture starts at the top. And part of me is glad that's not showing on the slide because I don't want to discourage individual contributors, entry level resources from trying to bring this aspect to the organization. As I said, it's a newer concept, probably started getting traction right around 2018, 2019, and it's starting to mature in some larger software engineering organizations, but really just taking hold in the middle market and smaller enterprise. And so, yes, these initiatives do definitely need to have leadership buy-in, C-level sponsorship, right? You need to motivate the masses to contribute and to participate in any data-driven kind of change that you want to do, because it will take the whole village, right? It will take everyone to get clean data and to get quality insights, right? Participating. And so it's important to get that buy-in from the top. Importantly as well, though, it does not mean that you cannot start to introduce this perspective from an entry level or a lower level, or even a functional management level, right? As long as you have access to some data, you can bring this to your stand-up meetings. You can bring this to your staff meetings. You can do side projects to indicate the value of something like this to your leadership. And so, thereby showing them the value to be gained, right? Even if you just, as an individual contributor, present your own performance in a data centric way, right? It will kind of, start the wheels turning, right, in that regard, and running the organization that way. The second thing you want to focus on is you want to choose metrics with care and cunning. Now, what do we mean by that? Your metrics are going to be how you essentially govern the performance, the delivery of your organization, and it's going to have an effect on the motivation of your resources. So you need to pick metrics that are going to drive your people towards the actions and behaviors that are beneficial to your initiative or goal. For instance, if you are trying to increase velocity, you need to be calculating or understanding insights around your delivery, right? Your current velocity. You need to have a threshold on where you're trying to go. You need to understand the things that are impacting your velocity. And so you need to be picking metrics, right, that give you light into those areas. And so that your people are aware that this is being tracked and understood for continuous improvement purposes. And so that will motivate them in a positive way, right, to contribute to those numbers. So that's what we mean about choosing metrics with care and cunning, right? Because it's going to have an impact on the way your people respond. Number 3 here, manage your data access effectively. So this kind of harps on the concept of data operations. Your people need to have access, right, to the data they need for the analysis they need to make effective decisions. Now, that is going to impact multiple levels of the organization, right? Because different people have different needs. So there has to be an underlying strategy here. But the thinking here is pay attention, right, to the data that's needed in certain areas for the impact you want to have and the outcome that you want to have, and make sure people can access it easily and effectively. If that's through tools, dashboards, etc., make sure your people have the right access to contribute to this data-driven culture and to benefit from it. Number four is interesting, and It's about pushing your people to quantify uncertainty, in our case, in software delivery or DevOps. Now, what does that, what kind of value does that give you, right? What it does is it motivates your people to think in a certain way. Because when you start to ask your contributors to quantify uncertainty, what you're saying is understand what we're trying to do, consider the impacts, consider the dependencies, consider anything that would cause us to need contingency. And by asking them to do that, what you're actually doing is having them think of relevant data points. Those are data points that they are thinking of. And if that is well documented, right, that train of thought, that can really shore up your data strategy in the background and the metrics that you choose. All of this works together as a well-oiled machine. So push your teams and leadership as well to quantify uncertainty, and that will start them to think in terms of relevant data points. That's how that input from that process should be considered. Number 5, make your proofs of concept simple and robust. So, what does that have to do with creating a data-driven culture? So, one of the things about proofs of concept is we tend to get caught up in the idea, and this is tied a bit to innovation, the idea of things and how great something is. We don't really consider the viability of that innovation in production, right? The realist, the pragmatic way that this could be implemented. Because a lot of times as engineers, we get excited about the concepts, right? The application of the technology. However, when you are considering changing the culture around an organization and making it data driven, the purpose of the proof of concept is to have your people understand the idea, remove any concept that this data will be weaponized against them, right? Your internal resources. And to really set a perspective that it's helpful, it's about continuous improvement, it's about the team as a whole. So those are the types of things that you have to consider when you're dealing with the culture of this kind of change. So when we're talking about a proof of concept in this perspective, it really needs to get to the heart and demonstrate to them these perspectives, right? It needs to be simple, to the point, maybe 1 or 2 metrics, come to the team and say, hey, we're considering making this particular change, driving more to metrics and data. We're going to focus on these 1 or 2 to get a feel, of how, make them feel included in the change, right? Their feedback is important. How it impacts them is important. But definitely run a proof of concept around, doing things in this manner. And, make it as simple, however robust as possible, right? So simple so that they understand what will be asked of them, how it will work, but robust such that they will understand the impact it will have on them as resources. So number 6, just-in-time training is really about making your resources ready for the change and not impacting their everyday capacity, workflow, method of doing things, right? You don't want to impact delivery because you're trying to introduce an improvement, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's going to have an impact. It's not going to have an impact because you will have to devote some resources to this, right? But what I am saying is when you introduce that, right? When you're starting to train your people as to how to contribute to this model, how to get value out of it, understanding around it, do it in a way that it's the least possibly intrusive and do it in a timely manner such that the change is coming immediately afterward. Don't bring the idea into the frame, train them 6, 8 months in advance. By the time it comes along, people consider it being blindsided, right? Because it has been so long since you trained or made them think of, how this is going to work, right? So, yeah. So train, just in time training. All right. Number 7, Trade flexibility for consistency. Now, this seems counterintuitive, right? As an engineer, flexibility is many times our friend, although we do love consistency as well, right? We love things to be repeatable. But when you're considering a data driven culture, and keep this in mind, a change to a data driven culture, you really need to have a stable, consistent model that you're moving towards and that you understand, so that you can communicate that cleanly to the rest of the organization, and meaning your technical resources that you're going to be asking to contribute to this or be managed by this information. It goes back to the quantifying uncertainty, back to the simple proof of concept. Um, but essentially, you will grow into that flexibility. You will grow into dealing with additional metrics, right? Because we're going to start small. You will grow into creating your own novel metrics that may be specific to your organization, and to be able to consider additional inputs and things like that. That's the flexibility that we're talking about in a program like this. But in the beginning, to get this off the ground, to cultivate the change, you want this to be a stable, well thought out program, consistent with a few metrics that you're benchmarking and trying to improve, right? So that you can really get a feel, and let the program take hold in the organization, right? It needs to be stable and small scale. All right. Number 8, we're going to use analytics to help our customers and our employees. It is important that any data driven management structure around software development delivery or DevOps also considers the morale, the inputs, outputs, performance of the resources. Customer is king, right? For those that are pushing products to market. However, resources are imperative, right? Because we can't get to market without them. And so make sure that your people that you're asking to contribute to this program are, understanding that there's value for them there. There is caring for them there, right? There's thinking around their well-being, how this is going to impact them, how it's going to help them, develop in their career, things like that. It's very important that your internal resources understand that the program works for them, as well as the company as a whole and the customers. Number 9, explain your analytical choices. So we talk about, choosing your metrics with care and cunning, asking your teams to quantify uncertainty, you know, be able to justify and explain these choices to your resources. Make them feel like their understanding and contribution, participation in this program is extremely important, because it is. The program will not be viable if you get rebellion or rejection or people are not contributing effectively. You will end up with incomplete data, and you won't get the value out of the program that you expect, right? And so, really imperative to get people on board and explaining your analytical choices, right? Making them feel like they're a part of the decision making, making them feel like they're a part of their understanding is important. Goes a long way in that regard. All right, number 10, partner with a trusted advisor. I cannot stress this enough, especially for organizations that are newly considering this way of management, or understanding your operations, your delivery, right? Start with an organization or a partner that understands this space well. Of course, Propello is well positioned to be that for you. And I will jump into the product shortly, to show you, how we would do that for you. But really, really important to partner with a trusted advisor. All right. So on that last point, we talked about acceleration through partnership, right? What that does is it allows you to focus on your core competency, but still drive that meaningful continuous improvement that is available to you through that data driven understanding of your delivery and operations. So there are always several benefits or things that we run into as a trusted partner. So I wanted to give a nod to some of those, and give you some more reasoning as to why it's good not to take this journey alone, right? So we always run into the build versus buy conversation, right, with our customers, and in general in this space, because we're all very intelligent people, right? We're all engineers. We build things for a living. We build dashboards and reports for a living, right? And so we consider this, we can do this, right? However, just consider the impact on your capacity, the additional asks of your resources, the lack of deep knowledge in this area that may affect your organization depending on its maturity, the learning curve, right? To create maybe the best visualizations or the best data literacy in this area, right? So if you consider partnership with a trusted advisor that's already in the space, right? All of those needs and impacts go away. It's simply having conversations and allowing a partner like Propello to bring this change management to your organization, right? Provide you with that foundation, the metrics, the benchmarks, right? Really get you started in an accelerated way and help you through this change management process. Second thing, a data strategy. So a program like this has to be underpinned by a strong data strategy, should you choose to do this in-house, which means you have to be compiling all of the data that you need to make these intelligent decisions, right? To do the discovery, to understand the patterns that really makes data-driven management effective. So that's a lot of work. That's a heavy lift. And unless you have some, department really dedicated to your analytics, to your backend data, if there's no enterprise architecture kind of area that's kind of marrying everything together in regard to data, references and things like that, that is a heavy lift. If you partner with someone, an analytics provider in this area, right, like Propello, that data strategy is built in, right? It's built into the product. Essentially, it piggybacks on the work that your people are doing every day. And I will show you that in the platform shortly. And so a lot of this impact in putting the program in place goes away. Finally, you have the benefit of working with a partner that has a scalable process, right? They can start wherever you are, meet you where you are, and grow with you. There's proven success there, proven value for existing customers, and the experience to implement these programs and facilitate this change management, right? It's just a big learning curve that you can totally avoid by going with a trusted partner. So I hope that was really helpful as an introduction as to how you could, the things you need to consider if you're thinking of going data driven in regard to your management and understanding, how to get things to market quicker, how to really be a streamlined, excellent engineering team in regard to software delivery and in the DevOps space, of course. So let's take a look at the product. Let's take a look at Propello and help you understand how a trusted, partner such as Propello would help you essentially in this journey. Try to highlight some of these values that I've shown. So I will switch over to the platform right now. Okay, so this is the Propello platform. Now, a few words about the thinking behind Propello. So we have a very seasoned team here at Propello that understands the space. They have been in the space for a very long time. We have a lot of academic research and understanding around analytics. We pin heavily on DORA metrics and some of the research that was done in that space to bring you a set of metrics across three pillars that if your team performs well in these areas will certainly bring you towards engineering excellence. So the three pillars that we pin on are alignment to the business, the dashboard that you're seeing here, execution, how well are you delivering, what's the quality like, and that's where the DORA metrics will come into play. You'll see those shortly. And planning, right? Especially in an agile fashion. How accurately are we planning? How effective is our delivery in regard to what we're committing to? Things like that. And so that is what will be adhered to in the three dashboards that I show you here today. Now, these come out of the box at Propello. So the metrics I show you, what we do essentially is we sit as a layer of intelligence across your systems of record, right? So your SCM system, your ticketing system, whether that's Jira or something like that. And we look at that metadata and we bring you these analytics and insights. So as I said, no need for a data strategy, right? You just do your daily work, and we will pick up the necessary data from that activity to bring you these insights. So that's one of the benefits of that trusted partner, as I said. So here we are looking at the dashboard for Initech. This is about alignment, right? Are my people spending effort in the areas where I need them to be spending effort? And when we talk about those meaningful metrics, right? Pick the metrics that are going to bring about the behavior that you desire, right? Be cunning. We take that lift away as well because Propello out of the box comes with kind of industry standard areas that you may want to focus, right? To increase your engineering excellence. So, in the case of alignment, right, there are several buckets that we see consistently across teams that are of interest and that are kind of low hanging fruit for improvement. And so we've broken those out. Technical debt, infrastructure, support. How are we doing towards our roadmap? Bug fix and other. So in the case of Propello, the way that we present our dashboards, which is the fashion of the product, is we present KPIs here at the top. So those key performance indicators and metrics that you have pinned on to start that program. We then start to show the behavior or the information that is impacting those metrics, right? So, the activity that we see in the data there. We allow you to drill down in this information. So in this case, you can see I have my alignment trend now. So I'm seeing these categories across time. I'm able to hover and see, right, the percentages of those across sprints. So I can see this uncategorized other work that I see here, right? That's a big deal, right? Where are my people spending this capacity? And so I can drill into that very quickly, right? This is the benefit of having that data-driven strategy. So should you not have this backend data, you have no real idea as to what your effort allocation looks like. You have no real idea that your team is doing so much unplanned work, right? That's not going into a product or to market. And you also have no way outside of going into your different systems or chasing people down to understand why this may be occurring. But here I can quickly get to what tickets are impacting these numbers. Is it a specific team, right? A lot of this is quality based. Is there a gap in my testing or something like that, right? So my team has not done anything. I've not had a lift at all to produce this, except maybe one or two meetings with my trusted advisor, Propello, so that they can understand my operations and format the data effectively. And so that is the beauty behind partnering for a journey like this. You really get an accelerated start. So just going back to alignment really quickly in the product, you can see your progress towards your big deliverables, right? This is at the epic level. I can see my team members here. I can see where my resources are allocated. So who's really working on this uncategorized work? Are they members of a specific team? Things like that, right? These are areas where I can quickly make a difference if I understand what is causing this. And product, Propello, for example, can really give me that insight. So let me jump to our next pillar. And this is in the area of planning. So planning is all about, especially in an agile fashion, Kanban fashion, are we planning for the work that we have coming effectively, accurately? How are we delivering on the plan? Things like that, right? So once again, here at the top in Propel, we're going to be greeted with key indicators around my performance in the planning area. And I would be remiss not to talk about, essentially the layout here, but in Propello, I'm looking at Initech. This is our mock organization. I can see different business units. I can see different regions. I can see specific teams, should I choose to look at their direct impact on the organization. And so that's here in my org unit dropdown. Here is where I would access all the different dashboards that I'm showing you here. So I have access to quite a few. In any dashboard you see, your filters will be here to the right, and that will change depending on which dashboard you're looking at, right? So, um, once again, laid out access, different perspectives, different views of your data right out of the box, right? No heavy lift from your people, except maybe a few meetings with us so that we can understand your org structure, right? And mimic that in the platform. But giving you that accelerated journey, right? That's what it's all about here. So in the area of planning, we greet you with done to initial commit because we want to understand, right? How well are we delivering on what we commit to deliver? It's a very important indicator of our performance here. Um, Quantifying scope creep, right? How are people slipping in work after my sprint begins, right? What is this about? And how often is that happening? Sprint predictability, integrity of my team. How likely are we to deliver what we say we're going to deliver? How well can the organization trust that we're going to do that? Now, if you notice here, we have these infographic hovers so that you know, you can understand what these metrics are. You can have some industry benchmarks to understand how your organization is stacking up, against maybe a high performing team, a mid performing team, and a low performing team. Right. And so you're not kind of operating in the dark and, using a gut feel to understand the impact or the velocity or, how well your team is stacking up again, how well are we doing, right? You may know the number, you may know the insight, but you have no idea what that benchmark means. Well, with a trusted advisor like Propello, you do have those guardrails to understand, what does delivering on 63% of what we commit mean, right? So you will have that built into the product through partnership. All right. So once again, you'll see that same model, right? You see your, of course, we show the velocity as well. You'll see your velocity and things here. And then what is impacting these numbers once again? So let's look at our sprint trend in this area. Quickly, you can see the work that was planned and committed here over the bar, the vertex. And here you can see the scope creep below the vertex. So very quickly, I can see I had several sprints that were totally consumed with just creep. Um, Once again, I can quickly get to the understanding of what that work was, right? Was this actually high impact work that should have taken precedent over planned work? Or are my people gold plating, right? Is there some business unit that is exerting undue pressure to get their work in the sprints? Quickly, I can get to that answer and understanding. Secondly, as I said, we want to focus in the planning area on planning efficiency and effectiveness. So here I can see we have some work to do in this area at Initech, right? We have stories that are zero point 0.5, which is not follow the Fibonacci sequence. We have stories that are 1 that are taking longer in dev time than stories that are a 3. And so we have some work to do in regard to our planning efficiency. That's also indicated by our metric here at the top that shows we're only delivering about 63% on average as to what we commit to, right? So that planning accuracy is impacting that metric. Once again, quickly, I can get to what these tickets were, right? So I can see what that 3 was that took only a few days and what the ones were on average that are taking over 2 months. We have the concept of hygiene scores. Now, this is about quantifying the actual health of, you know, your delivery team in this regard and your product management relationship in this regard, right? And so we actually pick up on contributing factors that may be impacting your delivery or your scores in this area, right? So, for the example, PM, right? For these 365 total tickets I have in queue, you know, 355 have no business priority, no use cases. 187 of them are missing story points altogether. And so I don't have a very high hygiene score here because for all these areas that are contributing, right, to my delivery effectiveness, I have a lot of gaps. And I can see that visually here, right? We're not performing well in these areas. Same for my active hygiene, sprint hygiene, right? So my guys, out of the 3,300 tickets, some I take, you know, most of them don't have any components. We've missed our resolution time. We don't have a problem statement, right? So we're doing great in regard to not having really large stories and assigning tickets. But for the rest, we're not doing so great. And so we have a low hygiene score here. Now, this is a proprietary widget for Propello. But the point that I want to demonstrate here is this is all out of the box. This could all be in place in less than, between 30 to 90 days, depending on the size of your organization. Should you try to do something like this in-house, it's going to take much longer than that because you have to build up the data storage. You have to build up the data ingestion. You have to build up the analytics, the dashboards, the front end, the back end. There's lots of work that goes into this. And by partnering with um, an organization that's already in this space, such as Propello, you really cut that time in half. And with Propello specifically, it's like a springboard because you are greeted with such rich insights and analytics that you can actually action in the platform. And I'll show you that in a moment, our automation. But that's kind of the long and short of planning. We go into kind of your story, point breakdown, like where are you people spending time once again. We want to surface, of course, any bottlenecks we see in your process, right? So to that end, we talk about the life of a story, the life of a bug. On average here, we're seeing stories are blocked for 36 days. That's not acceptable, right? Or maybe it is. Once again, this is not about right or wrong in your process. It's about bringing to light those areas where you can continuously improve. If 36 days is acceptable, depending on your volume and your team and how you deliver, then that's great. But now right? Prior to this, it was just kind of a black box. And so that's the point of being data driven, having that foresight, that understanding that, okay, my team has stories blocked for almost 36 days. If the business has a priority, I know, kind of the timelines around how I need to have things move through the pipeline, right? It's not a gut feel. It's not pulling a deadline out of the air or, we have to have it done by this date because this guy said it. It's really practical information to make informed decisions. All right. We have a nod towards communication here as well, right? We want to understand if things are going back and forth or if they're going straight through. And so you can see that here. All right. The third pillar that we talk about out of the box in Propello is execution. And this is where our DORA metrics are going to come into play. If you're not familiar with DORA, it stands for DevOps Research Assessment. It was a very large research effort that was done across thousands of engineering teams by some of the people at the likes of like Google now, Intel, places like that, that really keyed in on the teams, what metrics, what areas would be important to understand performance and delivery in execution. So we pinned on 4 North Star DORA metrics that we show here at the top in Propello fashion. These 2 are about your delivery, lead time for change, right? How long does it take us to get something from concept to production? And deployment frequency. Once again, in these hovers, you can see we give you benchmarks so you can understand what a high-performing team looks like, what a mid-performing team looks like, and where you kind of fall in that understanding. The 2 here on the left, as I said, are about your delivery performance. The 2 here on the right, failure rate and mean time to restore, are quality metrics from that DORA framework. And so here around execution, you can understand, the quality of your performance and the quality of the product that you're essentially putting out, your work effort. Now, lead time for change, we want to delve into a bit further. And that's because, this number is great, but there's a whole pipeline behind this. And so in a product like Propello, you can quickly see all the nodes in that process. And you can see where your bottlenecks are. We give you, once again, indicators to understand this level of performance. Taking it one step further in Propello fashion. Quickly, I can see what tickets, what PRs are contributing to this, particular metric. Propello is looking across my systems and it's bringing it together to show me a visualization of this process. And so I can understand where can I attack to get some improvement, pinpoint those areas for actionability. So here I see we're slow in PR creation time and we're slow in pushing things ready for production after test. So what's happening here, right? So I can see this is not really a problem. There's one ticket that's causing this, that's impacting this. And so that is not a real problem. Now, this PR creation time, much more of an issue, um, because essentially my people are committing code, but for some reason, once they commit it, they're taking some time to create the PR. So I may want to understand what's happening here, but I can see very quickly what tickets are impacting that. Once again, this is all in place out of the box. So no heavy lift for my people. They're just doing their work every day, and Propello is providing me these insights. I'm going to take it a step further and start looking at my PR collaboration process. Are there any bottlenecks here? Are the same people reviewing all the PRs potentially, like my senior guys? Are PRs going into being merged without approval? It seems like there's a lot of risk here. So things like that. Is there a buddy system kind of evolving naturally? Is the same person reviewing the same people's PRs all the time? So just a real clear and clean visualization as to the activity and the understanding around my PR collaboration process. So that's going to give me a really great, transparent understanding, right? In an area of team behavior and activity that's impacting execution, of course, because that's the pillar we're looking at here. We want to give a nod towards CI/CD, right? Our deployments. We are going to in this particular graph, we are categorizing the failures that we see so that we can pinpoint any infrastructure or in this case, a network failure. I can see every failure I had essentially had a network component in all of these jobs. So in that case, right, it's letting me know this could potentially be an issue. And I can put some action in place to monitor for this so that it will stop impacting my deployments. And I can, potentially, log a ticket with my infrastructure team, right? But once again, pinpointing an area that needs improvement and allowing me to action it and continuously improve. Very quickly, out of the box, no heavy lift for my people, very small impact on capacity. That's the beauty of partnering with a trusted advisor to bring in a change and go toward data-driven management, right? Really start to integrate these dashboards and these insights into your daily operations process, right? So that's essentially the execution pillar. Now, from these three areas, alignment, planning, and execution, we found several issues. With Propello, we can take it a step further. Not only will we give you the insights, really point out your bottlenecks, we give you the ability to put some action in place for these things. And so I'm going to pick on here PR creation time, right? We're slow here. So what I want to do is I want to give my people a nudge and say, hey, if you've committed code, maybe within 12 hours or so, right, whatever that threshold may be where I'm trying to get my people, I need you to have created a PR for review. And so in Propello, we have automations that are called propels that will actually automate that process for you. So this is an example of a PR nudge that I've created. See, it's a logic flow. Essentially, it's going to review my full request SLA. So that would be that 12 hours in the example. If that code has been committed and they've missed that 12-hour SLA, there's no PR, they are going to get a notification in Slack in this particular instance, because that's my messaging system. That's going to say, hey, so you committed some code. Could you go out and create that PR? Now, Propello has a very tight integration with Slack. And so there is the potential that I can create a Slack notification that allows them to go ahead and create that ticket, in the Slack window. I've seen customers create propels for missing story points. That's pretty common, right? In that planning domain, we saw we had an issue with that, our PMs. I could create a Slack notification that goes out there that allows them to actually assign story points right in the Slack message. So they don't have to break their workflow, their train of thought. They just simply get the message and they can say, oh yeah, I remember this. This should take, 5 points, something, or this is a 5-point story, something like that, right? They can literally respond with that. And so with Propello, which should be the case with any trusted advisor that you choose, there should be a clear-cut action to the insights, the ability to action those insights, right? And so Propello really gives you a clean, systematic way to attack that low hanging fruit, like these process bottlenecks we've seen. And it also pinpoints those bottlenecks so that you can, know where to take action, know where to expend that energy for continuous improvement. Finally, at Propello, we have an awesome customer success department, and they will assist you with the change management aspect of it, the people management aspect of it, really ingraining these Propello dashboards into your operations process, how to put them into your stand-up meetings, how to get them and use them for actual improvement and discussion in these areas, so that the program just gets more robust, and you just start to continuously improve. And that's the whole point. We spearhead your journey towards engineering excellence. We scale and grow with you as the program gets more prominence and more improvement, and more cooperation, things like that. And potentially spans across the organization, and we allow you to take action. So we're not just giving you insights; we're giving you actionability. Now, finally, some organizations do like to use these at the individual developer level or team level to understand contribution or performance. Now, we offer that as well in the platform. You can see here I'm showing just kind of a team insights dashboard. Um, One thing I will notice, Propello dashboards are highly configurable. Notice each of these widgets, and that's what they are, widgets on a dashboard is the presentation, have the ellipsis here where you can edit the metrics. You can compile any metrics that you like on a specific dashboard. It's almost like a workspace for you. So you have the ability to do that. As I said, these are the dashboards that come out of the box, the alignment, planning, and execution dashboards that I showed. So those are configured in advance for you. However, you have the ability to configure dashboards like this as well, or engage with us so that we understand your priorities and initiatives, and we can advise you on the metrics that should be included in your dashboards as a trusted partner. So here we're just looking at some team insights. We want to talk about, PR activity. How's this particular team doing for lead time commits, things like that in regard to number of tickets. Here I'm looking, was anybody working on the holiday, July 4th, right? I don't want my people burned out. Um, Once again, collaboration, but this is from a team perspective, not necessarily based on full execution, but simply looking at, one-on-one, right, on a team basis. Um, my lead time by stage, this is strictly from my SEM, right? My contributors. I want to understand that. And so this is not including my ticket information, strictly from source code management. I want to look at coding days, right? Rework. How much is refactoring versus legacy refactoring? Is there churn? Things like that. And so these can also be very coachable metrics when you start looking at the individual level and the micro team level. But you have to be very careful in this regard, because this is where people start to kind of feel like data is being weaponized against them. This is where they start to feel that the objectivity is being lost, right? Because you're looking at me specifically and what I've done. So you really need to be careful to introduce this well in advance so that you can understand feelings, morale on the team, things like that. Make sure to present it in a perspective of continuous improvement of the team. We're only as strong as our weakest link, and it's really about development and professional growth, right? We can identify our weak points, and just as we're doing with the organization, pinpointing bottlenecks and areas for improvement, we're doing that with the individual. So it's about enrichment and growth and continuous improvement, as opposed to being penalized or looking at as not being contributing, right? So you really have to be careful with the perspective that you introduce these kind of programs, especially if you're looking at data in regard to performance or at the individual level. So there's a very fine line there. And so you want an experienced team or group of people helping you introduce these kind of concepts. And Propello is very well poised to do that. So I will stop here with the Propello demonstration. Just wanted to really show how stepping into this change management journey from, with a trusted partner will accelerate that, right? And it will allow you to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that I see organizations go through when they try to introduce this new way of managing to the numbers, right? And so hopefully that was helpful and beneficial. Any partner that you consider should offer you the things that I've highlighted there, right? They should give you that understanding of your benchmarks, specific areas. They should help you avoid having to do that data work. They should advise how you are looking and from an industry perspective, right? They should show you the metrics that you should be, or at least guide you in the area of metrics that you should be starting with, right? To compile and to understand, and they should also help you grow, right? Because at some point, once you benchmark those initial metrics and start to improve on those and really get a feel for those, you will start to understand your organization in a way that more novel metrics will be helpful in regard to improving, right? Team A may not need help with planning. They may be really tight in regard to their agile planning, but they may be really bad in regard to their JIRA hygiene, right? And so their focus may be different. And so as you proliferate that data-driven management process, those are the type of intricacies that will come out and that will allow you to focus and start to, really be more laser focused in the areas of improvement of the organization. Okay, so additional resources. So everything I talked about today, some of the points about change management have been from the Harvard Business Review. Much of what I talked about in regard to the metrics and the insights and the actionability in regard to, the tactics of running this kind of program, the change management aspect of it, you can find on the Propello website. Right. You can see customer testimonials, things like that, that can really give you an understanding of some of the work involved in just changing the perspective and how Propello will help them to do that. We have several white papers available. One is on the DORA metrics. My colleague and our founder, Nishant Doshi, is doing a keynote speech here at the conference. So please don't miss that. He's going to really be going into depth in regard to the metrics, the type of metrics, and the actual metrics you should be looking at in each of the different pillars, which I kind of gave a nod to in the demo, but he will really be going into depth on what those are and what they tell you about your organization. There's a white paper here on data-led actionability. That's really great. It's, talks about how the C-level, how to take action on certain areas of focus that we see on a regular basis. And also there's a link here to specific use cases around the three pillars, right? Around alignment, planning, and execution. So you can see how those have shaken out for some of the Propello customers. And of course, you can always feel free to reach out to me directly. It's simply Mitzi at propello.ai with any questions. Finally here, I would like to give a nod to the Harvard Business Review. A lot of these change management and data-led issues I got from these couple articles. They're really great reads about this. So I'd encourage you to go out and take a look at those as well. So I will stop here. Once again, I want to extend my thanks to the DevOps India Summit for having me, and Solentra for putting that on. Propello is a proud sponsor, and we hope that you all enjoy the remainder of the event.